Hello, I've got my wrong overlays on. I didn't swap them. Wait, there we go. This is my overlay for when I'm doing dev work. It's got stuff about my game on it. Doesn't have please submit a game. This is the overlay for when we're doing Indies Under the Knife and our usual game review type stuff. I scheduled an extra stream this week to do something slightly different. Occasionally in Indies Under the Knife or in one of the community streams, those are two different things. You can find out about them on the website. Occasionally there's a game that catches my eye, and the first time I play it, I don't really get long enough to get a full impression of what that game is doing. And, you know, I like the game. I'm interested in playing it for a bit longer, so I kind of schedule a secondary stream to just give it a little bit longer. So don't know how long I'm going to be online today. Probably like an hour, maybe. If we get really stuck in, I might go for longer, but don't know if the dev's able to join today. This was one of the games that was submitted to the Patreon supporters stream that we did last week, last Wednesday. And I just remember playing it for like 10 minutes and going, I need to play this for longer. I like what's here, but also in order to, it's a kind of game that's just kind of slow, right? Because crafty, buildy strategy, or, you know, there's types of games where you just can't tell if they're good until you've played them for a little bit longer, quite frankly. And this was appealing to me. I liked the base of what I played, and I just wanted to check it out for a little bit longer. So that is what we're doing today. And that is the kind of thing that can occasionally happen. I was going to say if you're part of the Patreon, but any game that kind of comes up on a quick review stream and kind of catches my interest might end up in a longer stream. It just depends how busy we are that month. So let's check out Knights of Nil again. And I am going to be, I guess, stress testing it a little bit, because the last time I played it, we played the first 10 minutes. I went, this is cool, I like this, but I think with any game that has a kind of economy, like a crafting game or some sort of like city builder or something, you don't really know if the game works until you kind of really get going with those elements of the game. So this is kind of, it's kind of got a cute premise where you're doing real-time strategy type controls with a little group of characters, and you can give them jobs so that they go out and do automated wood cutting or stuff. Like, it feels like a game like kind of Settlers or something. It's got the same appeal as something like Settlers, with a couple of little dudes walking around doing jobs. But it also kind of feels a little bit more kind of optimized to be played as maybe a kind of console game or something like that. And that's not a bad thing. I just mean it kind of feels very native to controller because you're controlling one character at a time. So we've got characters we can swap between. We've got our governor. We've got our other characters who are currently set as followers, so they will just follow the governor around. And the first thing we need to do is find the well, which kind of serves as a middle of the town that you use for all of the kind of governing, I guess. We need to gather some wood so that we can start building our settlement. These islands will not be kind to us. So we cycle through the villages and we can change their job, or change her to a lumberjack and give her something to do. And then if I change to another person, they just kind of carry on doing their job. So we're going to set both these guys to lumberjacks initially. I really kind of like that mix of, you can control an individual character or you can sort of automate them and they get on with their thing. It feels like a nice mix of appeals. It could get irritating when you've got a lot more characters, but again, this is the sort of thing that's why I wanted to play it for longer. You can be a mobilizer, follow a lookout. Oh, okay. I didn't see that the governor had other jobs they could be switched to. So it gets a little bit fiddly when you've... I did a call to arms that was completely unnecessary. Everyone stopped doing their jobs and now I've got to put them back. Excellent. Devs in the chat. Thanks for joining. Governor's going to go and pick up some mushrooms. And I think... So the king has decreed that the islands of Nil be reclaimed. You must settle and defend each island with a well for 10 nights. To defend an island, you must keep a governor alive on the island all night and keep enemies away from your well when morning comes. So we've got quite a nice game structure here. We've got to visit each of the islands and then defend each one for 10 days. It's a little bit contrived, right? It's not very player directed. It's the game going, this is what you must do to win, but it gives us a very clear structure. So it might conflict a little bit with what people like doing in crafty games, but at the same time, this feels like the kind of crafting is more sort of a survival crafting kind of space, like something like the forest, where you're not, I mean, you can build something nice, but mainly you're just trying to get by, I guess. That's the sort of vibe. Okay, let's switch this guy. Can I be collecting food with this guy while the others work? I'm not sure if you can play it with a keyboard. I'm not, though, because I tend to prefer playing with a... Yeah, there seems to be a keyboard control. In games when you're playing a single character at a time, I tend to prefer to play them on a controller. But yeah, it seems like there's a keyboard. Oh, let's get him out of here. See, I lost a guy really early the last time I played this, and it felt quite punishing because you're losing all that kind of the action economy of you know, a quarter of the stuff you can do. Right, get him out of there. Build a torch to heal nearby villagers. Okay. So she has gone into lookout mode because I think she got attacked. Yeah, I think what Arthur just said in the chat about the slimes dying is a good call. Just make the deaths really, really clear when they happen. That's one of those things where if you improve it, you're improving the visual communication of the game, but you're also making it kind of more satisfying to kill a thing. Like, get the health bar gone straight away. Like, make them do something very kind of poppy when they're done. Be particularly helpful when we've got a lot of stuff to defend from on the screen as well. Yeah, just lose the health bar straight away. They've got a nice death animation. Right. We can recruit villagers here. I don't think we can do any of that yet. Can't wait to get a wizard. And they also just automatically put stuff in the well is your kind of storage for everything you collect. Getting a little bit confused by the controls, but that's to be expected with a new thing. How do I switch to the farm? So one thing about the tutorial here is it tells us to switch to the farm construction project. Oh, okay. We press Y or triangle or whatever to cycle through the available things. There we go. She gonna build? I can switch. So one thing that's a little bit confusing about the controller mapping is we've got left and right on the D-pad to change what the current worker is doing, and then up and down on the D-pad does like zooming and the map. And what I would say about your control design, because one of the things I'm getting confused with is left and right on the D-pad is to change your current worker's job, and the trigger, the front bumpers are to change which person is selected, and then you've got attack with that. I would be tempted to, if you're going to have attack on the trigger button, which makes sense, then have these buttons as the ones which switch your worker's job, because then you're localizing a set of keys together that all relate to the same control level of the game. Because I think one of the reasons I'm getting confused is the D-pad, which changes which job they're doing, is about that specific unit when you go left and right. But then when you go up and down, it's about like the meta level of the game and where the map is and the zoom and stuff like that. And that means that this, sorry, I'll just, it means that your D-pad is confusing because left and right on the D-pad correspond to one layer of the game, and up and down correspond to another layer of the game. And then up here is confusing as well because the right trigger responds to making one character do something, and the left and right respond to switching character. So what I would do is use these top buttons for everything to do with what the current character is doing. So you've got attack, switch job, and then use the left and right here for switching between your units, because then that way the D-pad represents things that you're doing as a kind of top-down player thinking about the whole game, and then up here on the top of the controller you're just doing the stuff that individual character does. So you're kind of sectioning the controls up so that they relate to specific parts of the game, and that might not be the perfect way of approaching it, but I think generally that way of thinking of like, okay, the face buttons relate to this part of the game, the shoulder buttons relate to this part of the game, the D-pad relates to this part of the game. It's a little bit mixed up in what the different areas of the D-pad correspond to in the game, and that makes it a little bit hard to learn. I'm feeling it myself. I'm not sure if the thing I've suggested is the best way of doing it, but I think the issue is that you've got, you know, things that relate to controlling an individual scattered around the D-pad, and then things that relate to switching between individuals or doing like top level planning scattered around the D-pad, and it's all blended together. And that's kind of easy to fix, and you can, you know, give people options to remap it and stuff like that as well. But I think as a standard controls, it's not good, and that is just because it's one of those things that if you're making a unique type of game, which this is, it's like an unusual premise in terms of what the player is doing and how they're controlling it. It means you have to design a lot of things from scratch, right? We can't just go, okay, I'm making a top-down action game, so we'll just copy exactly what Hades does with the controller, which is usually what you should do. If your game is very similar to another game, you should copy all the control scheme and stuff. It is not an area of design where there is any point in doing something particularly unique, because it doesn't add anything to the player experience except for making it hard for people to learn. But in this case, you're making a game that's relatively unique. You know, it's kind of a top-down strategy game where you're controlling multiple characters. That means you're designing the controls from scratch, and the kind of principle you can follow is just kind of sectioning the controller up so that each controller area, you know, I'm not going to repeat it anymore, but it sort of relates to a specific concept or area of the game rather than spreading it out too much, because I think that's where the problem I'm experiencing is coming from there. The game lets you zoom out a little bit. You can zoom out and, yeah, you can look around, but only from a certain point, so it is localized around your guys, which means we can't go and look at what's on one of these islands until we've been there. And that means that the dev can hide cool stuff there as well. I don't know if there will be stuff there or if it will just be like harder waves of enemies when we get there, but it's a cool... I like that structure where you can kind of see the game laid out for you, that you've got 10 of these to do or 5 of these to do, but you don't necessarily know what they involve until you get there. You know, that's a nice way of kind of creating some mystery. Now, what I would want to see in a full release of this type of game is if we get to the second island in this session, that it feels like something momentous has happened when we get there, but we'll see. Okay, we want to build a torch because we've got no way of healing. There we go, torch. And let's put it down here. The only reason I'm putting it lower is because The last time I played the game, when we first got invaded, the enemies came from over there. So I'm going to just hedge my bets a little bit. It might be random and that might not make any difference, but I think that would... If that information is relevant, then we may as well use it. Right, we can do some planting now. So let's take our wood cutter, because we've probably got, yeah, we've got loads of wood now. And farm. You doing it? And I think the way that this minigame works is kind of an example of something, and I mean this politely. This feels like something I would describe as good jank. And what I mean by that is like, this is kind of the difference between making games and making apps in general, right? Like apps are designed to have as little friction as possible, or, you know, they put friction in certain places to try and make you pay money for them. Games are about sort of tempering what the player wants to do with a little bit of frustration in the right places. And, you know, I've been playing kind of farming games like... I played the original Harvest Moon when I was a teenager on an emulator then, because it was already quite old. And a couple of the later ones. And you end up... You get this in Stardew Valley as well. You end up with, like, creating your own little mini-game of how you get around the crops and plant them or water them or something like that. And the dev could have made that process of, like, how you plant crops or how you water them a lot smoother, as if they were inventing an app, but they're not, they're inventing a game. So it's kind of okay for it to be a little bit laborious and time consuming. And what that does is sets you up so that later on when you get tool upgrades and stuff, they feel really important and powerful, because now you no longer have to do that kind of drudgery. And it's really hard to get that balance right. We love the speedy chicken. Yeah, I tried to catch the chicken and kill it the first time I was playing this, and I didn't manage to. Let's change this guy to a builder and see if there's anything we can build. Oh, we're getting a little bit of kind of, you know, bits of tutorial on top of each other, which is kind of a little bit... making the game hard to learn a little bit there. Right, builder, what have we got? Craft, a manor, that needs loads of stone. Houses need loads of wood. Okay, so we need to get mining wood and stone. It looks like we can build a second farm, so I will do. Because you do some... You build that. Build the farm. And we'll leave her harvesting stone at the moment up there, because... Although maybe we don't need to build a big fancy house on this first island, so let's just get her chopping wood again. Oh yeah, I keep forgetting that I can leave one of the workers doing what they're doing. Right, Jeriel, you're a lookout. It would be really nice in your kind of full release of this to be able to customize the governor so we feel a little bit of ownership. I don't think you need to be able to do it with anyone else, but if we can customize the governor, then it will feel a little bit more inclusive, because people can make their main character a dude or a woman or whatever, and, you know, choose their skin color and stuff like that. But also, it's like The governor is your equivalent of your like your base in a tower defense game, right? They're the actual thing you're defending when the enemies come in. So I think making sure people kind of like and care about that character is going to be important. Give them some ownership over that specific character. Start drawing a selection around a group of villagers by keeping... Oh, okay, we can zoom out and we can do a big one of them. And okay, so we can select everyone and turn them into followers so that they'll follow the main guy. That's cool. We don't need to do it right now though, so let's just get back to work. Still struggling a little bit with the changing job versus changing character control. It's one of those things that will be annoying to sort of modify as the dev as well, because you'll have been playing it for so long with a particular control scheme that you've kind of learnt it now. I've had this problem with various games I've worked on. It's like I get used to the first iteration of the controls and then I change them to what I know is better for like a new player, and then it's like I can no longer play my own game. I don't need to do this manually, do I? I can... Move your villager next to the well and interact with it to recruit new villagers. With multiple villagers selected, you can move them all to a different position. Okay, so the food is just used for building new workers. There's no upkeep as far as I can tell. So, the last time I played this, I died very quickly. So I'm going to get a new military guy. And we're going to switch his job to follower. Or he can be hunter. He can be a hunter for now. So he's going to go and find that chicken. So any of the characters that have their job set to follow will just follow around whichever character you've got currently selected. Due to the presence of evil magic on this island, hostile slime monsters will appear. If they're not dealt with during the day, they will wander into your settlement at night, posing a threat to your villagers. So if you proactively deal with the slimes, then they're less likely to end up fighting the characters that aren't as well equipped to fight. Just like in real life. Yeah, the friction of having to select people and swap the jobs, it's hard to know how much of that is just kind of like good friction because it's what the game is about, you know? It's a interesting one. In this town, we keep our gold in a well. That's how we do things. In the island of... Oh, do we need to build a... Our torches limited time. Is that a thing? Yeah, so the torch's healing effects run out. Okay. Obadiah has died from fatal wounds. Oh, silly Obadiah. You know what? I'm sorry, but it's... Oh. We can build a watchtower thing. We can build a... We don't have a... We don't need a house yet because we haven't actually reached the capacity for anything. Okay. You build that. And then you need to get back to farming afterwards because... Oh, we've got some kind of twin stick shooter controls for doing the bow, which is fun. There you go. He's got some chimkin. Just doing tutorial stuff now to make the tutorial go away. Right. Harvest crops, please. Eloise. If that is your real name. He's gonna go on lookout and stay there because the problem that I had before was that no one was guarding the workers. Let's get this food back to the base. Let's see if we can hire someone else. We're getting attacked, so we should get a... We've got as many... Okay, we'll get another worker then, because we can't have another militia. Right, he's a follower, so he's going to follow the governor. This guy needs to... We need to expand our living space so we can have more peoples. So, we'll get the governor and the archer together. Stuff is attacking us from the northeast, by the looks of it. My liege, you stole my last hit. The main thing is making sure they don't kill any of our workers, because that seems like the biggest waste of a time investment. I'm sorry, this guy, I don't know what your name is, new woodcutter, but I mainly think of you as an investment of corn that it took a while to grow. Because that's the type of governor I am. Okay, get one more worker. And then we're gonna... Let's try and master this. It's a little bit... The zooming out and selecting multiple people is a little bit challenging to master. It feels like the cursor moves a little bit fast. Right, they're all set to follow us, so they'll all move together now. And now we can go to... Yeah, you can be a farmer. And let's go and beat up some more slimes. The hunter soften them up, and then I will go in and double down on whoever my guard is attacking, so that we... The classic JRPG thing, you gotta prioritize killing the one with the least health so that they have less actions. Don't want to spread your damage out too much. I mean, that's the thing to think about as the... I don't know how sophisticated this gets in terms of like what kind of enemies are in the waves as the game goes on, but whenever you're kind of like attacking an enemy, whenever you're attacking a player with monsters in a kind of tactical game, whether it's turn-based or real-time, you sort of start off with a very simple situation where it's usually just, you know, 2 or 3 of the same thing, and you want to prioritize killing them rather than spreading your damage out, because that reduces the amount of attacks they have, right? That's like a really fundamental kind of basic tactical thing that exists in most tactical combat games, when it's like a group of characters against another group of characters. But if you want the game to kind of feel like it gets deeper, and you not just be like adding, you know, enemies with more health, which can feel like a bit of a cheat way of making a game more difficult, and you kind of want to think about how to you know, make the tactical situation of like getting attacked or defending from enemies like feel richer by having them attacking in mixed groups that might need you to prioritize, you know, defeating different things first. So if you've got a type of enemy that really loves destroying buildings rather than attacking characters, then that makes for an interesting mixed group, because if you attack it away from the base, then you don't prioritize attacking it. If it's in the base and it's got some little goblins around it, you're going to prioritize attacking the thing that destroys the buildings, right? So making sets of enemies that will kind of feel different to engage with depending on how close you are to the base, that would be a good kind of pathway for making sure that this feels like it develops and gets more kind of challenging at a, you know, like a tactical cognitive level for what the player is doing when they're fighting, rather than just adding more health to enemies and going, now you have to fight a red slime, it's got twice as much health, which can feel a little bit underwhelming when people have shown up to do strategy or tactics or whatever the mix of those things is in your game. Okay, we have got a lot of food. What I should probably do now is set all of the workers to lumberjacking, because we've got enough food now, and we've got a stockpile of food so that if any characters die, we can get them back, basically. But what we don't have is enough wood to build a house, which is what will raise our kind of troop limit. We can like go around and I like the way that you've got all of these kind of, each of the sort of mini games, if you can call them that, feels quite fun to do on its own. Like just spending some time hunting because you've got nothing else to do feels quite fun, because suddenly you're doing this bow control with the right stick and you've got a kind of twin stick shooter type thing going on, which is fun. It kind of, even though the game I'm going to reference is turn-based and this is real time, it reminds me a little bit of Dawnfolk, which is it's a different game that's like a grid-based sort of, it's like a mini grand strategy game. It feels like you're playing a miniature console version of like a 4X game or something like Civ. But that has a similar thing where it's like, oh, you've got all these things you need to do, like go hunting or grow crops or whatever, and you do them through these tiny little mini games, and that keeps the kind of moment to moment of the game interesting. And it fills it with stuff that could be busy work. I mean, you could think of this stuff as busy work, but I think that's how you make a game feel chill, is having some stuff that's busy work. And the chopping wood is kind of more busy work. I think that guy died in the sea, so I didn't get a chicken leg out of him. Goblin time. Okay, we'll see where they're coming from. I cannot see them on the map, but I've been warned that there's goblins. Okay, so what we want to do is, this is when I died last time. I'm going to just change this guy to the mobilizer. And that should bring all of the characters over with their weapons ready. Yep, they've got their spears now. All of my workers have gone into lookout mode, which gives them a spear to fight with. And I'm gathering they're not as strong as the militia, but it's still better than them getting like ambushed when they're chopping wood or something and they can't attack properly. So I was told there were goblins, but I think we need to build another torch before we get properly attacked. Let's have everyone bring their stuff back here. Yeah, I really like that moment of remembering that you can switch to the governor in order to blow the conch and bring everyone over. That feels really nice. That's a very nice kind of feature for this type of game where you're controlling a group of people, but you're doing it like kind of indirectly, or you're kind of controlling one of the group at a time. That kind of mechanic, that call to arms mechanic, I really like it. Yeah, the night is a little bit too dark. I don't know what we gain from it being this dark. Because it doesn't feel like it's designed for us to need to manage light. You know, we can still see everything. It's not like... yeah, not great to watch, right? I think some people will be watching on a small screen. They won't be able to see anything that's happening now. And technically we can see everything. It's just a bit too hard to see. And if we had to build lights, I guess that would maybe give us another thing to manage. That could be quite interesting. But basically, maybe the characters should have lights around them, and then you can build your own lights, or there's lights around houses, and outside of the lights it's just totally pitch black, you know? Because this level of darkness you can just about see, but it's a strain. Don't know where the goblins are coming from. I've been told there's goblins. Can't see them anywhere. We're going to go goblin hunting though. Yeah, moon cycles is a good idea. I like that. Don't Starve did that a little bit with its seasonal cycle. I don't think there were... I think there were only 2 seasons. I think they just had summer and winter. I can't remember. But like the build up to winter felt really... It just felt like a really dramatic part of the game. Like the first time you played it, you wouldn't prepare for winter. And then the next time you'd be like, I need to prepare for winter. It's kind of like the way that you kind of learn Minecraft, where you just sort of jump into survival mode and then the first night you die. And then... but really spread out over like a few hours. Okay, so collecting gold lets us acquire these buildings. We need to buy them, which feels a bit odd, but fine, whatever. You do what you need to do for the economy design of the game. Right, this one gives us more militia capacity. I'm going to risk it and go for worker capacity first. So that's what gold is for, basically. We kill monsters, we get gold. That lets us wander over here and purchase these buildings that are already here, which gives us additional upgrades. So we're going to get the worker capacity ones, which now means that I don't need to build a house with the wood I've been collecting. But that's fine. I'm not sure if theming these as houses that are here to buy with coins makes much sense with the fantasy of the game, though. Because if there's houses already on the island, they either need to be owned by someone, or you're like, if you find an abandoned house, why does it cost gold? You know, that's the sort of thing where it's like, I'm usually okay with game you know, game economies and systems being reasonably abstract, and you know, you can, if you have a game where gold is used for everything, then that's totally fine. But this feels like it's reaching towards a little bit more like, kind of, you know, you're supposed to imagine that you kind of are these people on this island and stuff, and that means that the kind of the immersive aspect or the immersion breaking aspect of like buying an empty house off of no one feels a little bit worse than it might do in another type of game. Okay, we'll get some more workers. We've got as many workers as we can have now. And that means that if I zoom out and I select everyone, we can do some stuff now, I think. So if I send them all to lookout and Uriel over there, what I want to do is get all... Oh, here we go, here we go. That was so fast. Jocelyn died. Okay. We only lost one, though. Can't replace them. Okay. The night feels very long, especially considering we can't do much because it's so dark. We can carry on working, but it feels a bit risky. Right, so what I want to do is move my military guys over here and then select everyone else so that I can get them working again. Although, you may as well just become a lumberjack because you're already out there by the trees. And I feel like, you know, thematically it might make sense if miners occasionally dig up a coin. I haven't seen that happen. I don't know if it is a thing that happens, but... onto there. Okay, up here. And what I should have is a builder that is just constantly building new torches so that anyone who comes back to town is getting healed on the way. I spread my lookouts out a little bit. Heloise, the OG Heloise. Okay. I like the building torches mechanic. That feels pretty neat. Let's... They're coming from the northeast again. Yeah, I would have the day to night ratio be like, I don't know, 70-30 or something like that. Unless we're going to have this kind of situation where you're still kind of actively working at night and you need to defend the workers while they work. Which is fine, but we can't see well enough for that, right? And I think what you could do, or what you could do then, is if you go that route, then when someone is set to lookout, they could have like... be carrying a torch when it's nighttime or something like that. Although, part of the problem, like, I like the system we've got where you need to have a torch to heal your guys. I would be tempted to make that a fire pit instead, because the bonfire has associations with rest, right? So the idea of sitting, like going near a bonfire and ambiently getting healed by it is a much more established thing. That's even in Fortnite. That is such an established thing. It's Dark Souls, it's in Fortnite. Just the idea of, okay, our characters aren't sleeping, but if they sit next to a bonfire, they will get their health back. They will regenerate some health. That works. And then that means you can free up torches to be something handheld by people that are just for light. Because what I was going to suggest is, if we have to do a lot of defending during the night or working during the night and having to defend people, then we need more light and we need stuff around managing light. And it would be good then for, if it's nighttime and you set someone for look out, for them to have a torch, so that that's like a bonus of having them set as a lookout, because then you can kind of see what everyone is doing and see if the threats are coming in. But if you did that, it would make the healing torches confusing. So then it would make sense to turn the healing torches into something else, which would be like, you know, campfires, bonfires, something like that. Okay. We gotta make hay while the sun shines. That's what they say, isn't it? You go and... We're getting a lot of monsters. I was told there would not be nighttime monsters, daytime monsters, but here they are. There. The game is honking away at me about these daytime monsters. I think the game is going to be a little bit too slow for us to get to the second island in this stream, because probably only going to be on for an hour or 90 minutes or so today. But it's good. I see lots of potential in this. Like, you know, the controls are a little bit squiffy and need some work based on some of the stuff we talked about earlier. The like baseline aesthetic of this in terms of how it all looks. You know, someone mentioned Dot Age in the stream the other day. I love Dot Age. I think Dot Age is a very kind of visually appealing game. This is mechanically different from that. Mechanics feel good. It's just going to be like making sure that the game feels reasonably varied as we advance through these islands. And making sure that that kind of nighttime period doesn't introduce loads of downtime and stuff like that. Thinking about like the way that the light mechanics work and stuff. If you do the bonfire as well, another thing you can do is if you manually take over a woodcutter when they're carrying wood, you can have them drop it in the bonfire and extend the life of it. Right, so if you could visually display the life of the bonfire, maybe it's got like a, I don't know, maybe it's got like 3 stages of the sprite, and you can see when it's burning down, and you can leave it to go out and disappear, because these torches staying here is not good. Oh, we can tear them down, okay. Do we get wood back from that? But yeah, maybe the bonfire, like, you can see when it's going out and you can carry a log over to it, and if you know, the log just goes straight into the bonfire like it does with the well. That would be a neat, because it again, it adds another little mini game you can do, just like occasionally taking over the hunter to go and manually hunt things. You can manually feed the fires at nighttime, and then you can have an overpowered fire that lasts longer, but only if the player kind of dedicates some manual control to it. Because I think that's kind of like, you're using the player's attention in this game as a resource of like, what is worth focusing our, you know, control takeover of the character on at this moment in time while everything else is automated. So anywhere where you can add more of that is going to make the game richer. You know, anywhere where you can say, okay, in this situation, it's much better for characters to be collecting mushrooms because we've got this new building and the building turns mushrooms into this other thing. Or, you know, the fire pit idea where it's like, okay, now instead of wood just being something I gather from trees and always take to the well, which is what the workers will do if they're set to lumberjacks, I can also take over a lumberjack and I can put that wood into something else. And that creates these moments where, you know, every job can have a reason why you would want to do it manually. You know, that would be my kind of design aim for this if this was my game. I would want to take every one of these jobs that a character can do and give you a reason to do it manually. Because at the moment, some of them it's like, I only really do it for a moment when I'm setting the character up, and there's not a reason why I would really want to sit there and do it manually all the time. And I think that would give the player a lot of... It's kind of like there's this thing in casual design, which, you know, this is more of like a mid-core kind of game, but there's a thing in casual design where the idea is that you make the base of the game really, really easy and accessible to play, and then you try and, if there is any skill involved in the game, you try and put that in a place where it's just like a bonus that the player can do on top of the main game, right? And you see this in kind of incremental games as well, where it's like you can't really lose, but if you play it well and efficiently, you can win faster than someone else. And anytime you see a game that has like a star system in it, where you've got levels, and if you complete them well, you get 3 stars, and if you complete them not so well, you get 1 star. That's like a classic thing in a lot of casual games, like Candy Crush games, where they have all the levels on a map. They also have that in things like, what's it called? Overcooked uses the same system, right? The reason that you use those systems is that players can feel success and progress even if they don't do amazingly well. So you can have like a lower threshold that nearly every single player will do, where they get a star, and it's like participation trophies, I guess. But in order to actually, you know, and however you use that kind of star system is up to you, but, you know, some games it's like a hard gate, so if you haven't gone back and done the levels really well, you can't go forward because you need 30 stars or whatever. But that's not what I'm suggesting here, because this is like a continuous survival crafting game where you're not locking levels or anything. But that kind of approach to design, where it's like everything in the game can be automated, and that's kind of like the chill, casual way of playing the game. Or you can like really jump into every job and micromanage it and go, oh, actually, there's an opportunity for this stone to, instead of going into the stockpile, I can put it into this building and it will do something else. That's like... I think that's where the source is in this game, and I can already see a little bit of it poking through. Certain jobs where if we, you know, unautomate it and take it over manually, it becomes this neat little mini game. They don't quite all have that quality to them yet. Who's this builder? We need another torch. It's time to build a house. We can build a manor. We can have another governor. Interesting. Let's build a house first. Okay, and then... Mr. Miner Man. Okay, they're going to build together now because they've both got something to build. That's neat. Put this guy back on lumberjack because we're starting to run out of wood again. Yeah, the resource management feels good as well. You can either be very reactive and just look at what's low and then aim for that thing. And 4 resources feels pretty good, right? You've got these kind of 4 main resources. It doesn't get too complex. You've got additional things like I guess they're kind of sub-resources, like these mushrooms and chicken and stuff, where it's basically it will become food when you deposit in the base. And I don't know if these are worth different amounts. I guess they probably are, because the hunting is a little bit more fiddly and difficult. So if I pick up the egg, I think I got a bug there. Picking up the mushroom made the egg disappear. It's still visually there, but I can't pick it up. But yeah, you can be very reactive and you can just kind of try and pick up the thing that you're low on. Or you can sort of aim towards what you're currently saving up for. We've got loads of food. Right, let's get everyone mining who's not. So if I select these two, oh. So it lets me choose worker jobs because, there we go, they're set to miner now. Because I've only got workers selected. If you have a mixed group, you can't set them to something like that, but that's fine. That's working fine for us. And I'll set them all to mining so that we can build a barracks because we just want to get as many dudes as possible. I'm going to quickly go down to these houses at the bottom and see if there's anything else we can buy with 150 gold. Yeah, if you do go down that route of like adding more things for each type of worker to do, I think the guiding principle should be that you never try and like add any other buttons, you know, unless you really, really need to. But, you know, try and use all of the basic control mechanics that you already have. I'm doing this in my current game. It's like I don't... Ah, okay, so we paid the money and that guy kind of moved in there. That's cool. That makes a little bit more sense. I think a way to make this... I like this from an economy design point of view, that we collect gold from defeating monsters and then we go down into this like old abandoned village and buy it up with the gold. I think that makes sense. It makes sense from an economy design thing. It's a neat thing to go over here and go, here's your little upgrades you can buy with your gold. I think the way to make this work from a fantasy point of view would be to have an alternative version of each of these buildings that is kind of like, looks rotten and broken and is like a sort of nasty green color or grey or even just desaturated with smashed windows or something. So then the kind of theme in the player's head can be, I'm paying the gold in order to fix that property and make it work again. And then the thing that would add a couple of things. It would make the fantasy make sense, right? Because it means that there was someone living here before, they're not here anymore, and we're going to take their previous dwellings and make them livable and make them part of our little domain. And that it allows you to sidestep some of the like nasty colonialism that could be in this type of fantasy. But it also kind of ties into like the kind of let's rebuild the town center thing that you get in cozy games when you're like, you know, your Stardew Valleys and stuff. And it also creates like a piece of visual language that at the moment when I came over here the second time, I can't see which one I've already bought because they all just look the same. So it kind of creates an on-off switch for the ones that you haven't bought yet look dilapidated and the ones you have bought look nice. And that kind of does multiple things because it makes this kind of UX improvement of the player can immediately see which ones they haven't spent gold on yet. And then it also kind of helps to explain the mechanic because it's like the gold is going on fixing the building. The buildings that you build yourself, you use wood, you use stone. The buildings that you fix, you use gold. That kind of makes a little bit more sense. It's just kind of trying to align the theme of the game so that what is happening in the game economy fits what players expect. And spending money to turn a dilapidated house into a mended house makes a lot more sense than what it seems to be at the moment, which is spending money to buy them as if they're real estate, which doesn't fit with the fantasy of like going to an abandoned archipelago and taking over all the islands, you know? Open the shop. I'm the blacksmith. I'm known as the best blacksmith across the lands of Nil. Daily quest. Deliver 5 stone items to the blacksmith's house. Okay. This is exactly what I was talking about a minute ago of like having a mini game that you can do with a specific worker. So that's cool. is busy work, right? But the thing about busy work games is you give the player so many things to do, right? And they're all very simple. They don't require very complex controls. But then the game becomes about time prioritization and which one do I do, which things do I do in which order. Yeah, that's cool. So we can convert stuff in the merchant shop. We can sell stuff. So we can sell some of our food and get money, which is, you know... Oh, no, that's the other way round. Okay. The cost is at the bottom and the thing we're getting is at the top. So think about the UI design for that as well, because it's not clear. So I would have either do like an arrow converting one thing into another, or have like a clear way of marking when something is a cost. Like maybe it's the bottom part is darkened or something. I don't know. But that wasn't super clear. Okay, I'm going to take on the quest. And I don't think I'll be able to afford a building anyway. Let's go and defend the town. Yeah, these all... I think none of these cost 100. I think there's no point us being here right now. Right, let's go guard the town. I really like this though, and I'm only kind of throwing so many ideas at you because I can see so much potential. But the base of what you've got here is really good. The problems with the controls are very easy to fix. It's just that issue that you get with when you have games that are more unique. You have to do a few more iterations on these things because you don't have anything to copy. You know? Have at thee, goblin scum. Oh, he's poking me. Do not poke the governor. I shall kite thee. Okay. We need a torch. Okay, you can get back to farming now. You can do some lumberjacking. We need some of that. Have some people on lookout. Yeah, I think if you were to give lookouts torches, that would give them a second function that would be kind of cool. Because spending the kind of work to have someone as one of your workers as a lookout feels like a little bit kind of underpowered as a decision. But if it was lookouts who also provided the light at night, then it would add a little bonus there. And so Ingram set out in the dead of night to build a raft to sail away to the other lands. So there's 7 named islands, and then there's some others. Doesn't seem very exciting to go to one of the tiny unnamed ones though, but maybe there's like a sort of challenge element of surviving on one of those tiny ones is really difficult. Been playing Bad North again, and that kind of has that sort of thing where if you get a multiple layer island, it's easier to defend because you can put your archers up on it, and you know the enemies have to go round a long way to get to them. And then you get these little flat islands with no kind of height advantage, and they're really hard, really difficult to defend. Okay. I'll put you into Lumberjack. Yeah, I think you need light mechanics just for generally being able to see as well, you know? Because this level of darkness is just... It's at the level where you can actually see everything on the screen, but it's just sort of slightly painful to see it. So from an accessibility point of view, it's like we're using darkness to just make it hard for the player to see, but it's not actually creating the kind of knowledge gap that real darkness would have, right? So if we went down the route of the blue mask, that you see that glow around the well, right? We make that, I don't know, 4 times bigger, and then characters have an individual glow around them as well, which is more like their circle of awareness rather than an actual light. And then whenever there's an actual light source coming from a building, coming from a campfire, coming from a character with a torch, it's like a big yellow one. And everything else is absolutely pitch black. So unless you're actively lighting an area, you can't see what's coming. And you could then design it so like some of the enemies carry torches as well, right? And that, I think that light system is just about visibility. It's not about healing. And then you have your campfires as like this radiant healing thing in their own right that is much more like the thing that's healing you isn't the light. The thing that's healing you is like you are sitting next to a campfire, and that implies that the character is resting, you know? But yeah, the darkness at the moment doesn't really serve a mechanical purpose because it just means that you can see it all. It's just harder. And that means that the skill that you're exercising as a player is your ability to make out things with your eyes in the dark, which might be an interesting skill to give people to exercise in like a first-person game or something. But in a game that's more about strategically managing, it would be much more interesting if we were like managing which of our units had a light source or building light sources, all of that kind of stuff, because that ties into what the game is actually about, right? But the whole time we have this kind of pseudo darkness where we're just slapping a cover over everything, but we can still technically actually see everything. The darkness is not about like the strategic management of resources that produce light, which is kind of what would be probably better and what would fit the game more. Because at the moment it's like I build that, but I'm building it more to heal my guys than to see with. Because I can technically see everything, it's just sort of slightly uncomfortable and inaccessible because it's, you know, not so dark that we can't actually see. I mean, look at the way that light is handled in Dragon's Dogma, for example. Like the way that light is handled in the Dragon's Dogma games is you literally cannot see in the nighttime unless you've, you know, cast a spell or got a torch. And that's very deliberate because that means that instead of it being a thing where you can just like turn up the gamma on your television, you actually have to manage light as a resource, you know? We've got lots of stone now. We can build another. We can have 2 governors. Set all these guys to followers, so I've got a little, get my little retinue. I'm going to play for like 20 more minutes, and then I've got other stuff to get on with. I really like this. I've said that a few times now, but I do think this is great. The group selection feels a little bit awkward, and that's mainly because I don't have to do it often enough. And when you've got an unusual control in your game, if you don't do it very often, you're not going to learn it. And that does make me wonder if there's a better way of doing the kind of following, you know, making multiple people into followers or whatever type thing. Okay, I didn't do my quest to get stone. So if I had 400 gold, I could automatically get extra wood per day. This is one I've got. See, there's no, you know, there's no visual difference on the building, so I have to like manually go around and check the doors to see if I've got them. This one gives us extra militia. I mean, we've got so much food, it would be good. Who's this? Grandma. Collect slime jelly, bring slime jellies to Tabitha's house. We're going to do that. We're going to do that, Tabitha. Oh, I don't have to actually select those. Okay. So we need slime jellies and we need stones down here. And I think what I should do, if I expand my militia... Oh, I don't have enough gold. I need 10 more gold. Oof. Yeah, I like... You know, when we have a quieter week and I get to do streams like this where it's just a game that I've picked from the games that we've looked at before, it's quite nice. We get to get a little bit deeper into the systems of one game, gives us other things to, you know, stuff pops up that is relevant to other people's games that you just don't know is going to happen. Like that conversation about control design earlier. It helps me think through these things because often people are coming to me with very broad design questions like, how do you do this? And it's like, the answer is always, it depends, because that's what design is, you know, like the thing you're making is incredibly broad. It could be lots of different sorts of things, and it often just sort of depends. So like having good games to look at where the core of the game is solid, you know, it's already appealing, it's already doing a bunch of stuff really well, and it has some of these little kind of niggling problems for us to think through. It's really, really helpful. I know it's like, yeah, people are time constrained. They can't sit and watch a 2 or 3 hour stream. Like, I don't get time to do that very often, like maybe once a week with the kind of stuff I watch as well. But what I will do is go through the stream at the end and put some timestamps on the things that might be useful to people. Because I feel like this game has prompted a few little kind of discussions that will have relevance outside of this game and this type of game, you know? We need 10 more coins, and we need to keep taking the slime remains over to that grandma. Right, you need to pick up that slime jelly. Yeah, I've noticed when you try and change which object you're holding near an item, it gets a little bit confused and sometimes it loses one. So if I'm holding an item and I go and stand next to another item and try and pick it up, that's when it game gets a little bit confused and it loses it. And you can still see it there, but you can't interact with it. Uh-oh. I like that we don't have too many different things to build, because that interface of just skipping through them with one button could get really irritating if we had like 20 things in that menu. But also that sort of thing is kind of cross the bridge when you come to it type thing in development as well. You know, if at some point the game gets to a point where you've added loads of stuff and you've got 20 buildings now, maybe you need a different way of doing that action. But at the moment it's fine because there's only about 6 things to cycle through. Okay, we've got enough. We've got enough gold to get the next building we want. These guys are all set to follow us, so they should follow me down. We're trying to pick up as much slime as we can. This guy should be a follower. Right, we've got 4 slime jellies here. This builder's doing nothing. You do some lumberjacking. I really like the walk animations as well. There's certain stuff that I haven't been through and been like, this is good, because it's just very inherently appealing. Just very characterful. The whole approach to art in terms of, you know, you've done the thing that I'm often pointing out in 2D art of like being very thoughtful about what it means for something to have a black outline. You know, you're almost doing like when you do the art design for your game, you're making decisions about what is important for the player to understand as a type of thing in the world, you know. And really rookie pixel artists would make that pathway have a black outline, or make the pieces of grass and the flowers have a black outline. But those things aren't relevant to gameplay, and we don't need to think about them. They're decoration, so they have like a lower internal contrast. They just like a couple of little colors. They barely vary from the thing they're on. Those kind of sand and pathway tiles are the same. Yeah, it's good. Right, we need 3 more jellies to finish her quest. And if we upgrade the militia first, then we'll be able to do that quicker. So we acquire this building. We can have 3 more militia. That might give us more archers, which I think could end up being overpowered. I find the colors okay. It's very rare that I like a very bold, bright, plasticky green background like this, but it does make it feel kind of friendly, I guess. Yeah, a little bit awkward about when we get into like micromanaging objects and picking up specific objects, gets a little bit awkward at times. So what we're going to do, we've only need these 3. So instead of upgrading the militia first, we'll go back and finish that quest, because it's getting close to nighttime. It's coming to 4 PM now. So probably better to finish that quest while it's light, and then go back to town and get our extra characters, get our extra defense dudes. Here we go. Yeah, we got some extra gold. Is there a building here we can get now before we go back? Tabitha, I want to buy your house. I want to turn it into an Airbnb. It will cost £200 a night. And we won't leave a manual for the coffee machine. Chicken. Chicken. I'm guarding my coins. One thing I do wonder is, so at the moment, when you cycle through your characters, it always just kind of goes in whatever order they're sorted in the game. It would maybe feel a little bit more intuitive to kind of do it based on how close they are to the one that you're on, especially if they're in a little group that's meant to be following each other. But I don't know how simple that would be to do. Kind of hard to know. Let's get some more militia. We've got 10 minutes left. Let's try and survive the final night. I think it's probably going to be too easy with this many guys. We can get another governor. We can have governor 2. So does that mean that if we've got 2 governors, does that mean we can take one to another island and leave everything happening on this part of the world? So I'll just go and... No, don't follow me. Don't follow me. Do not follow me. You are lookouts. Stay here. You must stay here. I am going elsewhere to govern. Do not follow me. Yeah, square selection feels a little bit awkward. Just don't do it enough to learn it. There's some great kind of gestury stuff with the... So you still got the kind of twin stick shooter controls hooked up when you're using the sword. You can sort of just swing the sword around without attacking, which is kind of fun. Ah. 'Tis I, Elias, the new governor of Bechmel Island. I'm here. I cannot disembark. What's going on? Oh, yes. I'm here. This is where I live now. On my own. Is everyone else still going? Yes, so my resources are still going up. That's cool. I thought it was going to be we had to move everyone. But there's persistence. Those people still exist on that island? What's this? This nexus cannot be activated until this island has been defended for 10 nights. Okay. And there's a nexus on the first one that I need to defend, I think. That I've never found. Never walked to that corner of the... So each island has its own kind of population limits and stuff. That's cool. I really like that. Okay, so if I were to... How would I go back over to... So the other island is still collecting resources. It seems to still be simulating. I don't know how I would go back over there, though. Can I go back over there? Because it feels like I should be able to, if it's still running. And I haven't defended it for 10 nights or whatever. Ah, okay. Oh, I see. I do it from there when we're in the zoomed out mode. Okay, that's not super intuitive, but also it's not something you do very often, so... That was a very cool kind of aha moment. Like, I thought it was kind of going to be like, this is a deep cut. Sims Castaway, where you finish an island and you go on and then you do the same thing again. The fact that your previous communities kind of keep running and become this kind of automated income thing for the future islands is really, really cool. It could make it very difficult to balance because... as you go on, you're going to need something to spend this kind of surplus of resources on. But that's a really cool moment, realizing that that's how the game works. And we got there pretty quickly, but that was because I just experimented with building a raft rather than, you know, one way of interpreting what the game has told me so far would be, I need to survive here for 10 days on this first island, and until I've done that, there's no point in trying to go to the next one, right? That's one way that we could interpret what the game has told us so far. But I just sort of messed around and tried it out. And now we've got 2 islands open. It's cool. That's very cool. I think part of that was because I got the second governor and I was like, why do I need a second governor, you know? Are you not working because we've got no storage space? Why are you not working? Have we completely strip mined the island? We have 2 workers here. We can't build knights yet. We can't build wizards yet. I guess maybe that stone is something to do with defending the island for 10 days and then you get a wizard. I don't know. It's cool. Yeah, there will... I imagine that you're going to need some sort of crazy balancing math to make this all work, but it's fine. Okay, so we got a lot of sword dudes here. Oh, Katarina, you're not so healthy. Yeah, if you had the torches so that you could repair them, then anyone that was set to a builder could just be kind of passively going around repairing them. That's another kind of way of thinking about that feature, the healing by torches or fires. Okay, so you can... So one thing that, Keel, I don't know if you watched it yet, but I did a video with a bunch of people from, like mostly people from our Discord actually, but folks who are making all sorts of different games that was about playtesting. And, the playtesting video that came out like last week or whatever. And one of the things, I think it was Curious Dynamics said, who was making Folk Emerging, was that, you know, like, when they're doing the first tests, they found that people kind of the stuff they were learning was about kind of like the core controls of the game and that kind of stuff. And then later on, they would find players got deeper into the game, and then they would get feedback on a different aspect of the game. And I think that's going to be an interesting thing with the development of this game, because you have a lot of different kind of layers. Like what happens when you get deeper into the game, what happens when someone's been playing the game for like 1 hour versus 10 hours, which feels like there is scope for this game to be that big or that long. And you'll find that the kind of later part of the game takes longer to get right because fewer of your early players get there. So you're not finding out what's wrong with it, you know? It's kind of what happens when you're practicing music if you keep stopping every time you get it wrong, because you end up with a really good sense of what the beginning of the song is like and not the end of the song. It's kind of like that with playtesters, because if 100 people test your game and like 70% stop playing after half an hour, then you just have a smaller data pool on what happens after half an hour, you know? Which is a thing that naturally happens, and it's why you will often find, you know, with AAA games and stuff like that, more bugs the deeper you get into a game, because they've been deprioritized because fewer people will actually reach that part of the game, I guess, is the kind of cynical way of thinking about it. Yeah, give people playtests with a save deep into the game. Yeah, this is why I think if you're making a game like this that's quite long and quite deep, you do need to make sure you've got some sort of community that you're building up specifically for your game, whether it's Discord or whatever way you do it. Because that way you can do what Noshi just suggested and give people a playtest of the game that's like deliberately in the late part of the game. Give them like a save file where they all start from the same thing, and then you can kind of test. And you don't want to do that with everyone, right? And the reason why I'm saying build a community for it, have a Discord, is you can have people that you've identified have played the core of the game and they play tested the main part and they know how to do that, and then you can throw them into the game deeper and sort of see how they fare. I'm going to end it there for today because we've seen a lot and we just had that great moment of like, oh, this is what getting to another island is. I kind of expected it to just become, you know, it's a different level, you don't go back. And the fact that you can switch between them, not easy to kind of control and do that switch, but it's kind of cool that you can. Gonna make it difficult to balance, and like this, you know, maybe there's a world where the resources between the islands aren't linked up and you have to build something in order to do that, and then that could become another job, right? The boating between the islands and taking stuff could become a job, or there could just be some automation you set up that links them together. They do that in Fallout 4. It's very simple, like someone becomes a caravaneer, and then if there's a caravan between two settlements, then those settlements share their inventory. That would be a kind of neat approach. But before you develop that approach, you have to know what it's solving, and it could be fine like this, but I imagine that trying to make the economy of the game work when you've got 8 islands and they're all, you know, producing their own resources, and there are, you know, this first island can get so well armed that we don't have to manually defend it because there's like 10 archers or whatever, and you're occasionally dropping back in and restocking them and stuff. But I can imagine it's going to get quite hard to balance with them all kind of naturally linked up. So you might find later on you need a way to make the sharing of resources between the islands into another thing that players need to invest some sort of time or resource into building. It's cool. I really like it. I want to know what the wizard does, but maybe you can tell me offline so it doesn't spoil it for other people. Yeah, thanks for joining today. I like doing these deeper dives where we get to play something for a bit longer. I would like to play this for longer, but I have other stuff I need to get on with, like preparing the next video for the channel and stuff like that, and working on my own game, which I did like 6 hours of artwork on yesterday, which was very, very productive, but it's left lots of loose ends that I need to go and tidy up. If you're watching for the first time, I don't know why you would be. I don't know why this would be your first thing that you watch on the channel, but thanks for joining today. This is a game development channel that is very focused on game design. It's focused on creative direction. It's less focused on the technical and marketing side of things, which is what a lot of game dev content online seems to be about. And part of that is because I love games. I'm someone who got into making games because I love them, and I want to see good games, and I want to do what we did today, which is take a game that is already pretty good, already has a lot of promise, and just like give it some little nudges and say, oh, you might want to focus some attention here, you might want to focus some attention here. I really appreciate people that come and hang out in the chat, because, you know, many of you are developers as well. Many of you have been through some of the same design problems that are, if folks who have submitted games will have experienced, and you can kind of share that experience too. Most of my experience is very, it's not strange, but it's like, it's unusual for a game dev YouTuber, because I've been making games as a hobby for like 30 years. You know, during my teens, I sort of learned a bunch of technical stuff about how to use like RPG Maker and how to code in BASIC and how to make levels in level editors and stuff like that. I've always made games as a hobby. And the idea of just kind of making my own game to a standard that I could release commercially has never really crossed my mind until the last kind of 5-10 years. So my entry into indie games has been very, very different. I'm much more just someone that loves indie games, loves the fact that independent game development produces interesting, unusual games that AAA and free-to-play games companies do not produce. But most of my, well, all of my commercial experience as a designer, you know, I got my first job in a studio at 28 as an assistant producer, and that was in a mobile studio, and we got to work on some cool stuff, but fundamentally it was still free-to-play games. Then I taught for a couple of years, which is probably, again, why my channel is a little bit different. I have a teaching background. I was talking about this on stream yesterday, but people often are like, oh, you're a lot more critical than other game dev YouTubers, and it's like, well, yeah, partly that is because I'm a gamer first and foremost, and that's where my kind of criticality comes from, is just advocating for the player and being like, will people really find this fun, right? Rather than you know, someone who is there to sell you a course, or someone who is there to kind of do kind of uncritical false positivity, is going to be kind of promoting this idea that anything you do is good because it took you effort, right? And that kind of makes the channel a little bit different as well, because I think if you've got a actual educational background, then you will feel some sort of moral imperative to tell people the truth about what they're doing. And that means that you don't just kind of like hand out pats on the back for effort. Like, we all put in effort. Like, making anything is hard. Making something that is good, if you want to make something that is good, then the orientation changes from sort of tinkering around and being impressed with yourself because you put a lot of time into something, towards kind of a service mindset. You know, you're making stuff for other people. I watched an interview with Hideo Kojima the other day, of all people, said that. It was, I don't know which magazine it was. It was one of those kind of glossy YouTube Q&As where it's someone sitting on a white background answering questions that have been sent in on a tweet. It was Hideo Kojima, right? And Hideo Kojima has, you know, he's like the David Lynch of video games, almost. I mean, maybe Lynch isn't the right person. Maybe that's someone like Suda. But Kojima has this kind of reputation for making things that are deliberately weird, making things that are a little bit standoffish towards the player. You know, there's been various things throughout Metal Gear Solid that are just like, why are you doing this to me, Kojima? Why are you doing this? And even he, in that interview, said that the thing that makes someone a good game designer or game director is this kind of service mentality, or like treating your players like you are hosting them, like they're coming into your house or they're coming into a party that you're holding. And, you know, if you're holding a party, or if you're throwing an event, there's this strange dynamic going on where someone has come to enjoy themselves, but they want you to be in charge, right? So there's this kind of like unusual psychological dynamic going on where the designer needs to decide what type of fun is happening, And then people are going to come along and say, hey, I heard there was a party happening here, or I heard you were having people around. And then the kind of type of fun that you give them needs to be consistent, right? So this is how you make the transition from just tinkering away, making games, releasing them, crossing your fingers, go on Reddit and complain about how it's all marketing and the fact that you can't do marketing, and actually making good stuff. I think we've seen a really good example of it today, is just, you know, like narrowing down the type of fun you're trying to do, focusing in on giving people a particular type of experience, and having a kind of service mindset, having the mindset that you're kind of hosting an activity for someone to do. And even before you get to the point of like, how much money is this worth? Is this a $5 game, or is it $12 game? Is it a $20 game? Is it $40? Before you even get there, you have to answer the question as, is this worth someone's time? Right? I had a lot of fun with this game for 90 minutes. And I think that's obviously that's kind of like the test that a game needs to pass before you even think of it as a commercial project. Like, can someone sit down with this game for 10 minutes? If it's an action game, can someone sit down with it for 10 minutes and still be having fun and still want to play it some more? If it's a slower type of game, like a strategy game, city builder, crafty builder, you know, all of these types of things that are a little bit slower, a little bit more thinking through, strategizing, does someone still want to carry on playing it after an hour? This game has absolutely passed that test. But you only get there by kind of throwing away the notion that, you know, games are good because you spend time on them, and orienting yourself much more towards, like, what type of experience are people here to have? And I think the thing about, like, approaching your game dev as if you're like a designer or a director of your game, which are kind of like, there's slightly different terms in a larger studio, but you have to have the same sort of mindset for both of them. And they kind of mean the same thing when it comes to like developing a solo project or a very small team project, is that, you know, you're there, you're telling people they're going to have a particular type of experience, and everything in your game over time needs to develop so that it's gradually pointing towards that type of experience. One of the things that I think is very good about Knights of Nil that we played today is I feel like the art style and the like level of cuteness and everything fits very, very well with what we're doing. Like, there's something about the art style that tells you that the game is going to be relatively simple, right? We're not, when I see those characters and I see that bright green background, I'm not thinking this is going to be Crusader Kings, right? When you see the complexity of the interface, I think this is going to be a sort of mid-core game where we're doing some elements of a real-time strategy game, but it's kind of simplified. I can play it with a controller. I'm mainly controlling one character at a time. And that's not just like good game design happening there, because it all fits together like clockwork at a kind of interaction level, which is what we usually mean when we talk about game design. It's like the whole direction of the game is pointing towards that. The art direction is pointing towards the level of complexity of the game. The character designs, for me, when I see those cute little characters, I think, I like these little guys. They're cute. I care about them. But they're not like whole people. They're not very sort of highly rendered characters that I'm going to be distraught if they die, you know? And the kind of closer you get to more of a grimdark, realistic setting like an XCOM or a Darkest Dungeon, the more hardcore it feels, because the art direction and the way that the characters are portrayed makes you care more about the individual ones, which is why it's really hard to be onboarded into Darkest Dungeon, because you have to kind of get over that. But this is kind of like, you got these cute little characters, you care about them, but you're not going to like rage quit the game if one particular one dies, because you didn't invest loads of time into like naming them, dressing them up and all of that kind of stuff. I think I haven't played Mugenics yet, but my understanding is that game does this very well. You know, they made some very specific decisions about not letting the players name their cats because they didn't want them to be too attached to them, because losing them is a big part of the kind of loop of the game. And that's all of the kind of stuff you have to think about to make good indie games. It's like, it's not just building the game, the technical hands-on stuff. It's not just the game design of the systems and mechanics that the player interacts with, and the UX and the controller design that makes it easy for them to engage with. It's also how the top level creative decisions like the art styles and how you render your characters and how visually complex the world looks that tie into those other aspects, right? There's a great book by Jesper Juhl, it's a game studies guy, that we'll probably cover on the Game Developers Library podcast at some point, called The Casual Revolution. It's got like a Wiimote on the cover. And it's the only academic book I've seen that really breaks down what it means to design a game that is more hardcore or more casual. And it really gets into this kind of relationship between art styles and the tone of the fiction and how punishing the game is, right? So like a classic example would be Dark Souls. The game is incredibly punishing. You can't pause the game. You put time in and you lose lots of progress in one go. And everything about the art direction and the way that the world is built kind of tells you that, right? It has this kind of heavy metal masochism in the whole way that the game is presented, right? And then the other end of the spectrum, you've got your Candy Crushes of the world. You've got your kind of, I guess, your Mario Karts, your Animal Crossings, the more kind of softcore, the casual Nintendo stuff. And that's doing the opposite thing. It's like, got a friendly aesthetic and it's saying, come in, this is a game that's not going to kick your ass, whatever. And the thing is, the space that we're working in, you've got all of the shades between those things in terms of trying to align your creative direction, your art direction with the tone of the gameplay, how punishing it is. You know, we've got games that are cute but dark, like Cult of the Lamb, Binding of Isaac, both examples of games that are kind of cute but kind of dark. And that kind of shows you or communicates to you. This is why all of the choices that you make when you're making your game are marketing. Because you look at Cult of the Lamb, you look at Binding of Isaac, and it's kind of exactly in the middle. And that tells you that there's going to be some things about this game that are punishing or cruel. But it's also kind of goofy and you shouldn't take it too seriously, right? I bring all of this up because I think this is a game that does all of this exceptionally well. And I probably wouldn't have given it as much time as we did today if when I saw it on that stream, it wasn't already... Like, we picked out things that were not working with this game today and could be improved. But, like, as a basic idea, like, the package that you see here is already firing on all cylinders and is already enough to get the sort of person that wants to play this game to commit to downloading the demo, you know, signing up to a newsletter, whatever. Right? And that's where you want to be before you go into full production, right? Was it Thomas Stewart put out a video the other day about production and what it means to go into production? And, you know, in various media, we have pre-production and production and sometimes post-production. And it's kind of a thing that's easy to understand if you've worked in some sort of studio, because the pre-production stage, if you're doing like work for hire, like you're making games for someone else, the pre-production stage is kind of everything you do before someone signs the contract. It's like the pitching, the documentation, all of the planning, before someone goes, yes, let's actually make this. The problem that a lot of indie developers have is they sort of, I guess you've got two extremes. You've got people that just endlessly tinker on prototypes, and then you've got people at the other end who assume that everything they start is a project that deserves to be finished. And I think the state that we see this game in is kind of like, that's the level of quality that you want to get your game to before you actually commit to saying, right, this is definitely going ahead. I'm going to spend 6 months or 2 years of my life finishing this thing. Because until you've got everything in place and players can look at it and go, okay, I see the basic controls. I see what we're doing in this game. I see how it's fun in the first 5 minutes. I see how it's fun after an hour. I see how the art style kind of relates to the tone of the game and the level of complexity and all of that kind of stuff. Until you've got that, you shouldn't necessarily really be committing to making that game bigger and better and like aiming for a full commercial release. And the reason I think why I gravitated towards this game and wanted to give it a whole stream today was that it just felt like it's kind of sort of like 80-90% of the creative and design things are already in the right place. And yeah, I just hope, yeah, developer, wish you well. Hope that things go well with this in future. I really like this kind of thing. I think there's a demographic as well. When we think about like who plays what kind of games, there's a demographic of people like myself who perhaps have a bit more of like a hardcore strategy game background. But as you get older and you have less free time and you have kids and stuff, you want experiences that evoke that thing, but aren't quite as big a time investment, right? So, you know, an RTS game I can play on my own that I don't need to play online as an esport, or, you know, you know, Dawnfolk, for example. For those of you who haven't seen Dawnfolk, I'll just get it open on Steam because I think it's lovely. Dawnfolk, really great game. Sort of mini grid-based 4X. Feels like a 4X that could have come out on the SNES in the 90s. Kind of puzzly. You know, you're taking over the map. You're deciding how to deal with the creatures that already live there. This scratches a similar type of itch. You know, there's a type of player for this game and for Knights of Nil who's like a young player that doesn't have this big history of gaming behind them. But there's also an audience for these types of games, and I don't know whether it's the primary audience or secondary audience who have a background in playing really hardcore strategy games, and for whatever reason in their life, they want that experience in a smaller, diluted form, right? Just like when, for example, when Hearthstone came out, you would get loads of players who had previously played Magic the Gathering in person with real cards, who, for whatever reason, found that inconvenient. And that happened. I've been playing Hearthstone since it first came out, the Blizzard collectible card game, and that came out exactly the point in my life when my first child was born, and the idea of like taking an evening out of my week to go to a shop and play Magic the Gathering with a bunch of kids became something I couldn't do, became something I didn't really want to do. So there's this kind of cycle that happens where more complex game genres get kind of watered down, casualized, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. That is the kind of genre shaping itself around the changes in people's lives. And I don't think that's necessarily something you can design for, right? And maybe it is, but it's definitely something that you can think about when you're thinking like, who is this for? Why would someone want to play this? And when you're kind of taking a more complex genre and you're making it simpler, making it more casual, you can kind of think of those sorts of things. Because if you're, you know, if you make something that is kind of to appeal to the people that play StarCraft, or is to appeal to the people that play Dota, and you make it simpler, then you probably need to kind of think about like why you're making it simpler and who that suits. Because if you kind of make it simple in some ways, but it's still like too long or too deep, then the people who would play your game are probably still just going to play StarCraft or Dota or something instead. So it's kind of like you're making a game for a different market segment, and part of the reason they're coming to your game is that they want something that eats up less of their time. You know, they want a Dota match that only lasts 5 minutes. They want a grand strategy game that they can solve a map of in an hour, right? Which is what Dawnfolk does very, very well. And I think that kind of brings us back to something that came out in today's design as well in Knights of Nil, is that my first boss that I had taught me this, is that the ultimate balancing variable in any game is the player's time. It's like the only resource that sort of exists both inside the game and outside of the game. So whenever you're thinking about your game, think of it as a time investment. It's like, what happens in 3 minutes of someone playing this? What happens in an hour of them playing it? And that's a really helpful guiding principle to have, like, whatever type of game you're working on. And it really brings us back to that thing of like, before you're thinking of your game as a commercial project and thinking of like, how much should this cost? Will people buy this? You kind of need to think about, would people even play this for free if I gave it to them for 5 minutes? Like, you start off with the exchange of value is someone giving you their time and attention. And then if enough people seem like they want to give your thing time and attention, then it's time to say, okay, maybe I should ask these people for some money, you know? Anyway, I've rambled on long enough. Thank you for joining today. If you want to skip back through the VOD afterwards, I'll put some timestamps on the bits that might be useful for people. And go and play Knights of Nil. It's cool. I had fun with it. I like the little people. I don't feel too sad when they die. It's just like real life.